Last week we talked about Orlando Brown and Nick Scott. We reviewed their film and some of the free agent happenings that were going on at the time with the Cincinnati Bengals. Since then, they didn't get the next big fish in free agency. I kind of always felt like they'd get another guy. Maybe it would be a tight end. Maybe it would be a running back. Maybe it'd be depth on the defensive line or a corner. Stop. The Bengals did sign a tight end, so I have to interrupt myself here because I was going to say they haven't signed a tight end yet, and hopefully they will. They have, late last night. Tight end Irv Smith Jr., originally from Alabama, played with the Vikings, former second-round pick, another second-round pick. I don't have time to break down the film for you right now. I will have some clips on Twitter, but next week we will profile, and hopefully they got a couple other guys that they've brought in, defensive ends, defensive tackles who had visits with them yesterday as well, so it'll give us something to watch. But they did sign a tight end, so disregard what I was just going to say right here and carry on with the show. Instead, we've got two value free agents, tier 4 type free agents, maybe even tier 5, depending on how you look at it. I assume they're both one-year deals. We know the first one, Cody Ford, the offensive lineman from the Cardinals, via the Bills before that, is a one-year veteran minimum deal. The signing for Sidney Jones, I don't know yet, don't have that information as of this moment. I assume it's a one-year vet minimum deal as well. He's bounced around some teams. But the Bengals do sign two former second-round picks. I've said this before, and it's not a secret, but GMs and teams tend to like to sign guys down the line that they had an appreciation for during their draft year. So the Bengals may have really liked Cody Ford, who went the same year that Jonah Williams was drafted. And he went in round 2. If you remember that class, Ford and Max Sharping and Juwan Taylor were kind of mocked at the end of the first round, very similar to this year's class, where there's a lot of guys that could probably go between 20 and 32. They end up slipping into the first 10 picks or so of the second round. The Bengals didn't get Juwan Taylor or Cody Ford, and because of it, they remember reports where they thought about trading up for either one, and because of it, they ended up not getting the guy they wanted at 39, trading back, ultimately drafting Drew Sample, who's still a free agent, and the Bengals still need a tight end after not being able to sign either one. But we're going to start with those two guys, the two veterans, Sidney Jones, who I didn't quickly profile him, but he was also a second-round pick. If you remember, he was also mocked to go in the first round, leading up to Washington's pro day, where he hurt his Achilles on like the final drill of that pro day. And then people didn't know where he would go. It was projected like second to fourth round after that. He still went in the second round, so good for him that he was able to survive that a little bit. And then, but you know, he's bounced around. So we'll watch both guys, understand what we're getting in the depth. Sounds like the Bengals are going to play Cody Ford at right tackle, and then Sidney Jones as feels like an Eli Apple replacement. So let's start with those guys. Cody Ford had a couple of games at right tackle this past year for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll highlight him right there. He's number 72. And this is his first snap coming in, replacing a guy who got injured. And I think it's got to be the crowd noise. They're in San Fran. He's late off the snap. You see, let's just say it was the crowd noise, right? Let's go with that. This next one, I think he looks much cleaner and better. Nice little stab there, protects the edge. His feet still look rough and stiff and slow, but his hand usage is actually better than I expected. This is a technique that some use. I know it looks funny to go with the spin move and use your butt and backside, but we saw Lael Collins do that as well this year. Sometimes stiffer guys kind of just got to roll with it. I think he battles there, and the ball's out. A lot of these balls come out quickly. For a big power guy, sometimes he lets guys into his chest and to move him a little bit there, and I think that's where the hand work can be better. That's where I think a lot of people thought he was a guard because he doesn't have great length. He's okay. But for a big guy, he shouldn't be getting overpowered on a few of these reps the way he does. You see instantly, like, contact just sends him backwards. But I like the fake jab there, come with the other arm, the inside arm instead. Locks that guy out. I don't know what the pass rusher's doing, but, you know, we'll take it. Next game versus the Broncos that he played right tackle. I believe this is a goal line or a 2-point conversion, but he
He's fine there. Oversets a little bit, allows the inside to open on this one. Again, the balls are out very fast in all of these, so it's very hard to get a true gauge for it. This is one of his better reps. Stones the guy from going outside.
So as of now, the Bengals, with the issue at right tackle with Jonah Williams not going quietly to the opposite side of the offensive line, looking for a trade, asking for a trade. Could Cody Ford be the next guy slotted into that position? Could he be the one that starts until La'el Collins gets ready? I don't feel very confident. Now, Cody Ford was a second-round pick out of Oklahoma. If you remember, he played 1 year, started 1 year at Oklahoma at right tackle. A lot of people thought he'd be a guard. Very nasty, physical, tough blocker, played through the whistle type guy, heavy-handed. You could tell he needed the reps. He needed the experience in pass protection. A lot of these college guys do, and that's something we'll talk about, for probably the next couple weeks, but definitely later today. He needed the reps. He was drafted in round 2 by the Bills. They started him at right tackle that first year. Did not look good. Now he's inexperienced, right? He was young. He needed the reps. The following year, they moved him to left guard. Now you're switching his position again. It may sound like the Jackson Carman situation as well, who I would say are actually pretty similar players. The Bills move him to left guard, doesn't look so great. Move him to right guard, doesn't look so great. They trade him for a 5th-round pick to Arizona. Arizona also plays him at guard. Well, actually, I thought he was okay last year while watching film. I don't have any film right now of him at guard. I didn't clip those because the Bengals said he's going to play tackle, and it sounded like he was going to play. That he agreed he's a right tackle. So they're kicking him back to that spot where he did play a couple games. That's the videos I showed. It's rough overall. He's still not the fleetest of foot. He's still not the most agile guy. His kick still needs work. His balance needs work. The way he absorbs power and anchors still needs work. He still looks strong, and he's tough, and he's physical. So maybe they see a baseline there that maybe they can work with. It's not like La'el Collins was great last year. So maybe they think the adjustments they made with Collins and kicking him out and making the split a little bit wider, turning the pass rusher's path to maybe I should go inside since there's such a gap, and because of it, they can really tell. Put it this way: if you got 2 offensive linemen lined up here and the DN's far out in the far technique, even not all the way 9, but just outside the tackle, he can go upfield, or if you can get him to the tackle to go with him, he can cut back inside. But if the tackle is one gap or at least a wider split out, the offensive tackle. Well, he's right over the DN, so it kicks the DN out a little bit and really takes away him going. And I think they ended up rushing right into La'el Collins, playing to the Bengals' advantage. So maybe they think they can do the same thing with Cody Ford. I don't know. I'm trying to see the upside here because it's not. If he makes the team, it's probably because we didn't see improvements out of Carman, Adeniji, or whoever they draft or don't draft isn't the guy. So next up is Sidney Jones from Philadelphia. He's not from. That's how I remember. He was drafted by the Eagles. He was eventually cut after year 3. He won a ring with the Eagles that first year. Cut after year 3, claimed by the Jaguars, who signed him to an extension after that season, after he finished that year. And they ultimately traded him to the Seahawks. I want to say a 5th-round pick, very similar to Cody Ford's situation. And then, for whatever reason, the Seahawks cut him. In the second year of that deal, he was claimed by the Vegas Raiders, and he finished out his year there. I thought week 18, that was when he got his most reps. I want to see the most recent reps. He played a lot in that game. I cut up that to see what he looked like. If he was still the same guy, I remembered.
Sidney Jones had to step in week 18 versus the Chiefs. This is the first play, 3 before the half, that he had to come in and just has to play his own and then come up and force the guy out of bounds before a field goal attempt at halftime. But he came in for an injury, so he had to play. He had to come in and defend the run a lot in this game because the Chiefs were winning. And he's actually gets active and has a couple nice plays here. We got a slant and man coverage. And the ball's behind him, but, you got to do a good job to break it up and close that gap, not give the receiver a lot of time to slow down and come back for the ball. And, man coverage, you got to get lucky sometimes, I guess. But you see a lot of physical plays with him, a lot of tackling from him. I think Lou Anarumo definitely likes that. And then you'll get a few really nice plays. I think this is one of them. They're really stressing the cover 3 here. So you got a deep free safety. That's the blue. You got 2 vertical routes coming from the left here. And as he's carrying the boundary guy, he's realizing the seam, no one's there. So he's got to get over in time and make a play and help his safety out and get a hand on that ball. And he does. He does a good job. And I'll try and slow it down here and maybe we can get a closer look if we zoom in a little bit. You'll see as he's looking for the ball, gets a hand in there, rips it at it, and the safety comes and lays the big hit. The combination of the two save a big play for the Raiders. Another run defense play for Sidney Jones as he's got to come in, fill, and make a tackle on Isaiah Pacheco. Even though Pacheco picks up 6 or so yards on here, I mean, you're a corner and you're playing off, and that's just how it goes sometimes. We've seen Pacheco run people over before. And we got man coverage versus Juju Smith-Schuster. Sidney Jones is going to get flagged for this play in man coverage. And we'll talk about man coverage in a second. With Jones, that is. But we also see that Juju seems to get this penalty a lot because I'm not sure there's much going on there. You can see him dig and try and really break down in that route to get out, but I don't know if that's worthy of a penalty. But I could be biased now that Jones is now on the team. He's going to be off on the right here. He's got a tight end with him. And you got to break off him. You got to make a play here, not just stick an arm out. That'd be one of the only negatives I got of him against the run. We got a goal line play here. I love the way he manages around his other defense help, his other defenders, the safeties, and then gets to the inside of this tight end and really locks him down here. Mahomes is forced to throw it away, but you see how he gets around him right there and then really locks him. Good job.
This reminds me a lot of the Eli Apple signing. If you remember, Eli Apple was originally drafted in the first round by the Giants, was traded to the Saints, was picked up by the Panthers, and then the Bengals ultimately got him. They were his 4th team. This would be Sidney Jones' 5th team now in 6 years. So similar type timeline. He has ability. He has enough as a zone corner. Physical, will tackle. I think he's got enough awareness to him. If you look at his athletic profile from his draft class, he wasn't the most agile dude or most explosive. Decent speed. He was thin, though. I think that would have dropped him more than even the Achilles injury when he tested the way he did. I don't think he was a first-round pick anymore, to be honest with you. I remember that year. So Neil Engelberger from Twitter brought this up to my attention. I wanted to give him credit there, but I'm going to go through it a little bit more. He said, look up his splits between zone and man over his career. So I went on PFF and looked these up. And man, I don't think I've seen a split like this. So this is with all of these teams. This is with all 4 teams that Sidney Jones has played on. Averages out to be like a 40 in man coverage for PFF grade. His zone coverage, he's had up to 79. It averages out to be like a 73 to 74 grade in zone coverage. So he's much better in zone. And I think that's what the Bengals are. And I think of the plays that Eli Apple screwed up at times. And if that rubbed them the wrong way, and most of them felt like they were in zone coverage. Although I thought Eli was good in zone. It just seemed he had the propensity to make that mistake or that error, that big miss, while he was the only guy out there in zone coverage. If it was like a cover 3 and he's the only guy to that side, you really can't bite on a double move, right? So Sidney Jones appears to play really well in zone, just can't play man much. So I don't think he's a Trey Flowers replacement, which people ask. Flowers was almost like 69% man last year because he was just coming in and covering tight ends. So I don't think that's what it is. I do think it's the cornerback 4 replacement, but it's a good class. So maybe they draft one and add more talent to that room. Speaking of the class, this is where we're going to go on to the other segment I had today, and that was a look at a player that I think is a little bit overlooked. Maybe he's not anymore. He was highlighted because of his combine performance where he tested like a freak athlete as an offensive tackle. This is Blake Freeland from BYU, the 6'8", 300-pounder. He's played 4 years. He's played a lot at BYU. His production's really high. I'm going to give you the profile while the videos play, actually. So here's Blake Freeland. I think he's a second-round pick. The way he grades out in our scale, guys like this typically go before the mid-third round. So you can't, I think in projections when we say, oh, he's a third-round pick, for the Bengals, that's not a third. That's at pick 60. So if the Bengals don't take an offensive tackle and feel they still need one, because that's key, do they actually want to spend another premium pick on an offensive lineman? If they don't get one at 28, and say they take the tight end and then they want to get a tackle in the second round, where does Blake Freeland fall? Because his profile looks like a starting and potentially Pro Bowl offensive tackle.
Blake Freeland, number 71 at left tackle there versus Baylor. This is actually from 2021. One of his best games. I just wanted to bring this one in because I thought he had some of the most true pass sets of any of his games, where he normally only has like 8 to 10 of them. This one he had quite a handful where they're just dropping deep bombs. But he's 6'8", 302 pounds. He had 33.88-inch arms, so almost 34-inch arms. He has played all 4 years at BYU. He started his first 2 years at right tackle. He had 950 snaps in those 2 years. He started the last 2 years at left tackle. He has 1,700 snaps at left tackle. If you look at PFF grading, as a freshman, he had a 69 overall grade. Sophomore, an 82 overall. Junior year, 82 overall. This past year, a 91 overall grade. In fact, when it comes to PFF, I don't think they like any offensive lineman as much as they like Blake Freeland. Just the last 2 years. So the last 2 years combined, like I said, he played 1,700 snaps at left tackle. He has been charged with just 13 total pressures and 1 sack. So we know he's big. We know he's got a lot of production. And then he tested like a elite athlete at the tackle position, which, if you know anything, if I've tried to express anything, it's that testing matters, especially on the offensive line and edge rushers, right? Because if you're an offensive tackle and you expect to block the freakiest, most athletic, strongest combination dudes on the football field at defensive end, you better be a long athlete yourself. And Blake Freeland is that. And now I do think he has trouble with power, like you just saw right there. Sometimes guys get under him. Remember, he's 6'8". Sometimes he's 6'8", 300 guys are a little bit light. And he was a former tight end, former quarterback also in high school. So there is still some developing happening there. I think he could add like 20 pounds and be fine. And it would help his power. But he's actually a really good power run blocker. And the development needed is as a pass protector. Blake Freeland here at left tackle, number 78, versus Boise State, if you couldn't tell by the bluegrass here. And I think this is one of his better games, especially in pass protection. This is one of the games where he gets the most like true pass sets, where he gets to drop back, actually protect, have a guy that's threatening the edge, an athletic rusher that'll threaten the edge, which isn't something he always gets to see. And like this rep here, very patient, balanced, hand placement. He can be a bit of a two-hand puncher at times, and I think that can hurt him, something he may have to adjust with. But there are games where I think he is good independent hands and shows that he has the ability to do it. It's just maybe not something they teach often. And I think like that last rep is really good because he's got to open his hips and stay with this guy around the arc and then readjusts and rebalance and recenters himself. And I like this play because he down blocks and just like crushes the whole offensive and defensive line as like everyone starts falling down. But his strength is his athleticism and the way they move him in the run game here. And he's going to see him jump cut to the next hole while he's pulling. It locates, tracks, and sticks the linebacker to help his running back get a decent gain up the middle. Another one with him climbing. He's going to have to help out his guard, get 98 out of there. He does. Now climb up to 7, wall him off for the running back, and he does a tremendous. That's an A+ run block for Blake Freeland. Now we get a screen pass here. Freeland's going to swipe his guy, get up on that linebacker, take a shot. Almost hurt his own man, but I do like the aggressiveness he plays with. Pass protection here. He's going to have a little bit of chip help, but you see 33 is going to come inside on him, try to spin move, and just balanced, strong, patient. How about passing off some stunts? He's going to knock the D-end inside. The edge rusher is going to come around the other end. And look how he folds. Look how 15 folds at the contact of Freeland, which is something that I think shows he's got the power and the strength that I think some people are knocking him for. He's got 54 coming around the arc. Easy peasy. Next one is pretty much the same thing again. 54 really can't threaten him around the edge. Locks him out easily. Now we get a run block here. This is one of my favorite blocks. I mean, 98 isn't having nightmares about Freeland and his left guard, his running mate. Just throw him out of the club here on the goal line. Man, he sent that guy 10 yards easily. Now let's watch him pull block here. You want to get him in a power run offense? He can do it. Locates and gets the edge. Another true pass set, 33. He's going to come off the line slow. It is, if you're not going to threaten him with speed, you've got no chance against Freeland, who is a tremendous athlete, number one. But you know, if you aren't going to threaten him in any way, I think he underrated strength and balance. I wish I'd see him get a chance to anchor more, like have a guy convert speed to power and really try and bull rush him. Oh, this is one of my favorite plays too. At the end of the game, so it's a goal line, or not a goal line, QB sneak situation. He just kills that linebacker.
That's our show for Bengals on the Brain. We look at 2 signings the Bengals have added to round out the depth in Sidney Jones and Cody Ford. We also looked at a prospect that I think in round 2 could be on their radar. And man, if he's there any later than that, then I would see it as a value pick in Blake Freeland. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think his tape shows enough. If you've got 8 out of 10 parts and your profile says you're probably got high upside, I think that's definitely worth a second round pick. And I know the consensus has him at like 85 right now, which is much closer to the end of round 3, even leaking in round 4. I think he's a round 2 pick, and I'm really excited about Blake Freeland. So add him to your mocks for me and send them to me. But this is Bengals on the Brain. I am Joe Goodberry. Follow me at Joe Goodberry. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons wherever they're at. I actually don't know where they're at. So do that, and we'll see you next week.